I'm going to read the next instalment of Michael Morpurgo's My Friend Walter. Okay. Walter became suddenly thoughtful. He looked out across the fields to the hills beyond and patted Sally's neck. "I think I shall not be fishing for some time, cousin," he said. "There is somewhere I have to go. There is something that must be done." "What do you mean? Where are you going?" I asked, but he never replied. I thought he had not heard me. Will you be gone for long?" I asked. "Fear not, dear Bess," he said, putting his arm around me. "I shall be back soon. You can count on it." Looking back now, I should have foreseen what would happen. The very next day Sally went missing. Gran must have asked to see her. She had seen her first thing in the morning when she went up to fill her water bucket as usual. Oh, Gran loved Sally, and in spite of her creaky knees, always took it upon herself to look after Sally in the summer-time. She said the regular exercise would do her good. I did not know anything about it until the afternoon, when I came home from the dentist with Mother. There was a police car in the yard. Father broke the news. "Sally's disappeared," he said. "She's worth over £1,000 to me, that mare. It's a sound fence, I tell you. She couldn't have got out, not on her own. She's been taken. I know she has." "What?" "In broad daylight," said the policeman, who looked hot in his uniform, and kept wiping his neck with his handkerchief. "Hardly likely, sir. There's no one been here for most of the day. Would have been easy," Father went on. "Well, of course, we'll keep an eye out for her, sir," said the policeman. "But I think you'll find she'll come trotting up the road before the evening's out. Perhaps someone's left the gate open." And everyone looked at Gran, who was almost in tears. But Sally never did come home that evening, nor the next, nor the next. Of course, I knew who'd taken her. I went out around the farm coughing for Walter. I even risked shouting for him, but I knew it was no good, even as I was doing it. I went everywhere we'd been together, into the tractor sheds, down to the river, along the marsh field, into the meadow, but he'd gone, and I knew well enough who he'd taken with him on his travels. No one actually blamed Gran, not in so many words, but the trouble was, no one had seen a van or a horse box coming up the farm lane that day, and the field did not open out onto the road. It was difficult to see how Sally could have been stolen without someone seeing something, and if Sally had not been stolen, there could only be one other explanation. Somehow the gate must have been left open. But then, as Father said, someone must have shut it, because he found the gate closed. Horses don't shut gates after themselves, he said. He was still sure she'd been taken. But Gran blamed herself anyway, whatever anyone said. As the days passed and Sally didn't come back, she became more and more upset. Everyone tried to console her, even Father, and he wasn't always that kind to Gran. "It wasn't your fault. I know it wasn't," I heard him tell her. "She's been stolen. Must have been. But you never know. They may still find her. She's got a brand on her after all. Don't you worry, Gran." But Gran shook her head and plunged deeper and deeper into silent misery. Auntie Ellie came in every day and sat by her to cheer her up, but that didn't seem to help much. She wouldn't even eat Auntie Ellie's walnut cake, usually her favourite. She just didn't seem interested in going on living. It was a fortnight later, the first day of the new school year, I remember, that Gran had one of her turns, and the doctor was called out. He said that if she wasn't any better by the next day, then she'd have to go into hospital. That same evening, after I'd had my tea, I was out picking blackberries in the front meadow, and I heard a horse snorting. I turned around. Sally was standing under the shade of the chestnut tree at the bottom of her field. She was grazing peacefully and hardly bothered to look up as I approached. She had sweated up, I noticed, but she was groomed nicely, and when I lifted her feet up, I could see that they were picked clean. "Oh, where have you been, Sally?" I said. "With me," said a voice from behind. Walter was standing there, leaning on his cane, a wicked half-smile on his face. "Well, dear cousin, are you not pleased to see me? Have you not missed me sorely?" My anger boiled instantly and explosively. You steal my father's horse. You go away for days and days without saying a word. Do you know what you've gone and done? You've nearly killed my Gran, that's what you've done. She thought she'd left the gate open by mistake and let Sally out, and now she's gone and had one of her turns worrying about it. You don't think. You don't care about other people. It may just be a ghostly game to you, and we may just be puppets in your play, but I'll never speak to you again. Never. I was steamed up and would not stop now. They were right to cut off your head. They were. You can go back to your bloody tower and rot there for all I care. And I ran off. They thought I was crying with relief when I burst into the house and told them about Sally. They came running out to see for themselves. Walter was nowhere to be seen as Sally came trotting over towards the house to greet us. But the glad news did not seem to help Gran. That evening she refused her supper again and turned her face to the wall. In the kitchen, the 5 of us sat around the table. Even little Jim seemed quiet and dejected. "I can't understand it," said Father, shaking his head. "A horse just can't go off and come back as if it's been on holiday or something. I can't understand it at all." "You should shoot her," said Will. "Well," said Mother. "Well, if Gran dies, it'll be Sally that killed her," said Will, wiping away his tears with his grubby hands. "Wasn't Sally's fault," I said before I could stop myself, and they all looked at me at once. I thought then of blurting the whole thing out, but never believed me anyway. Will would have scoffed at me, and my mother and father would think that it was just one of my stories, and it was true. I was always telling them stories. They never really believed them, and I knew they didn't, but I went on telling them just the same. I wasn't a liar exactly. I just liked making up stories, and this one they would certainly never believe. Not in a million years. Well, it would. Well, if it wasn't Sally that brought on her return, who would have been? It would have been something else, said Mother. The doctor says we had to expect this sometimes. There's no sense in getting her all het up. She won't die, Will. She'll come through it. I know she will. She gripped Father's hand on the table. She will, won't she? She said to him, and she buried her head in his shoulder. Father waved us out of the room, and we went outside, Will still wiping his eyes. He put his arm around my shoulder. "She'll be all right," he said. "She's got to be." I decided I quite liked my brother after all. I was lying on my bed before I noticed a note on my bedside table, and on top of it was a small bottle. The writing was difficult to read, the letters tall and regular, but strangely formed. I could read it only slowly. "Dearest cousin, I have wronged you and your family most dreadfully, and your anger towards me was deserved, and your hatred justifiably fierce. I do deserve no better. I ask no pardon, but to say that all I did for you, as I trust you will one day discover. I pray you make haste to administer the elixir in the bottle to your grandmother. Delay not, for I fear she has dire need of it. A few drops in her tea will suffice for a full recovery. Do it now, and you will see my time spent collecting plants and herbs, and all the hours in your brother's laboratory were not entirely wasted. Your humble and most affectionate cousin, W.R. The liquid in the bottle was of a dark, mushy green colour, as much like pond water as anything else. I did not think twice about it. I put it at once into my skirt pocket and made my way along the corridor to Gran's room. I went on tiptoe as the kitchen was right below, and I could hear Mother still sobbing quietly, and Father trying to comfort her. Gran lay propped up on the bank cover pillows, her face as white as her hair. Her eyes were closed. The tea was still warm in the cup by her bed. She had not drunk any. As I tried to release a few drops, the bottle trembled in my hand, and too much came out all at once. "Come on, Gran," I whispered, shaking her shoulder gently. Her eyes opened. "You've got to have a cup of tea. You know you like a nice cup of tea." She shook her head. It'll do you good. I made it specially for you. Waste not, want not. That's what you always tell me, remember? A suggestion of a smile moved her lips, and that was enough to encourage me. I put my arm around her neck and helped her to drink it down. She spilt some of it down her nightie, but she took almost half of the cup before she fell back against the pillows. Oh, that was nice, dear, she said, and she closed her eyes again. I left her and went back to my bedroom. I opened the bottle and smelt it. It smelt like minty cough mixture. I pondered again and again over the note. I do not know why, but I had absolutely and complete faith in my friend Walter. I never doubted, not for 1 minute, that his medicine, his elixir, would work. It couldn't have been more than an hour later when I heard Gran calling from her room. Will raced along the passage outside my door. Mother and Father were taking the stairs in twos with Humph close on their heels. By the time I reached Gran's room, they were all there. I was not at all surprised when I saw. Gran was sitting up in her bed, her face still pale, but her eyes bright and alert. Oh, I had the strangest dream, she said, looking somewhat bemused. There was this old man bending over me. He was dressed in all black, he was, with a handsome beard on him. He had earrings just like a pirate. I don't usually like men with earrings. It's not proper. Anyway, he told me I'd be quite all right just so long as I drank a cup of tea. And then he disappeared, vanished into thin air. And soon after in comes Bess. It was you, dear, wasn't it? Yes, Gran, I said. I thought so. And she told me to drink a cup of tea, and so I did. And I'm right as rain now. Mother and Father and Will looked at each other in utter amazement. I could eat a horse, Gran said, smiling. Oh, honest I could. Sally, perhaps, said Will, and we all laughed and all cried. It was difficult to tell which. Again and again that night I coughed for my friend Walter, so much so that Mother came in to give me some cough medicine in the early hours. You've been coughing a lot lately, she said. The cough linked to make me feel very sleepy, but I forced myself to stay awake. I tried calling him softly by name. Walter, Sir Walter. But he never came. I didn't mean it, Walter, I said, as sleep came over me. Honest, I didn't. Come back, please. Come back. But he never came. I had banished my friend, my only friend, and I had only myself to blame. There you go. So we are now about to start chapter 5. Okay, so be good. Listen to Mum and Dad, or your carers. Okay, and stay safe.